Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are tackling something that is, frankly, a bit of a superpower for anyone trying to build or sell a product. We're talking about a way to figure out what your customers will actually pay for, not just what they say they want. It's called conjoint analysis, and it's probably the closest thing you'll get to a crystal ball for your business. So here's our game plan. We'll start with a classic problem every marketer runs into. Then we'll see how conjoint analysis helps to code what a customer is thinking. We'll look at the experiment itself, see how the data becomes strategy, and then wrap up with how you can get it right. Let's get into it. All right, so part one, the marketer's dilemma. Look, every single business on the planet wants to find that perfect mix of features and price that just makes a product fly off the shelves. The thing is, actually getting a straight answer about what that mix is, well, that's really, really hard. I mean, think about it. If you just go up to someone and ask, hey, how important is price to you? Or what are your must-have features? The answers you get can be, frankly, pretty useless. It turns out we humans are not great at explaining why we buy things. You see this all the time. There's this huge gap between what people say and what they do. Someone will swear up and down that price is their number one concern, and then they'll walk right past the budget option to buy the premium brand. Why? Because in the real world, buying something isn't about one thing. It's always, always a trade-off. And this quote right here, it just nails the problem. When you ask about price all by itself, it seems way more important than it actually is when we're standing in a store or looking at a website, juggling 5 other factors in our head. And if you build a product based on that skewed view, that can be a very expensive mistake. Okay, section 2. So if asking people directly what they want is a dead end, how in the world do you figure it out? Well, it turns out you need a smarter way to ask the question, one that actually copies how our brains work when we make a real choice. And that is exactly what conjoint analysis is for. Instead of asking what's important, it watches what people choose. And from those choices, it figures out what they truly value. You can almost think of it like a little laboratory for decision-making. We get to watch how people make trade-offs when presented with realistic options. So here's how it starts. You have to break your product down into its basic ingredients. In the lingo, we call these ingredients attributes. So that's stuff like the brand or the price. And then the specific options for each one, like Netflix or $9.99 or 4K quality, we call those levels. These are literally the building blocks for the whole experiment. So, part 3, the conjoint experiment itself. We've got our building blocks, our attributes and levels. Now, how do we actually use them to peek inside a customer's brain? This is where the laboratory part comes in. The whole process is actually pretty straightforward. First, you define those building blocks we just talked about. Then, a smart algorithm designs a bunch of different product combinations. After that, you show these to people and just ask them, which one would you pick? And finally, some statistical magic happens in the background to analyze all those picks and figure out what's really driving their choices. So, this is what a person taking the survey actually sees. It's called a choice task. And notice what's happening here. We're not asking, how much do you like 5-star hotels? No. We're forcing a trade-off. Do you want the fancy hotel in Vegas, but for a shorter trip? Or a longer trip to Orlando, but in a 4-star? Every single time they click one, they're giving us a clue. And they'll do this about 8 to 12 times. Okay, part 4, from data to decisions. This is where it gets really good. This is the payoff. Let's see how all those little clicks and choices get turned into something you can actually build a business strategy around. So, the main thing that comes out of the analysis is a set of part-worth utilities. Now, don't let the fancy name fool you. All this means is preference scores. For every single option we tested, every city, every price, every feature, we now have a hard number that tells us exactly how much people want it compared to everything else. And with those scores, we can start to see the big picture. For instance, we can calculate what's most important overall. In our vacation example here, it is crystal clear that the destination was the biggest factor in the decision. It drove 40% of the choice. Far more than the price or even the number of nights. We can also zoom right in on a single attribute. So for destinations, you can see San Francisco was the runaway favorite. And that little note at the bottom is key. Seeing Chicago with a negative score doesn't mean people hate it. It just means within this group of choices, it was the least preferred. It's all relative. But all of this, all these preference scores, they're the ingredients for the most valuable tool of all. This is the market simulator. This is where the data stops being data and starts being a strategic weapon. So what a simulator does is it lets you build a virtual marketplace. You plug in the features of your product, you plug in the features of your top competitors, and based on all those utility scores, it predicts what we call the share of preference. Basically, if these were the choices, it tells you what % of people would choose each one. And this is where the magic happens. You can start playing what if. What if we introduced a version with ads? You change one thing and the model instantly recalculates. And wow, look at that. Our share drops from 35% all the way down to 29%. You can test price changes, new features, competitive moves, all before you ever have to commit a single resource. It's amazing. Okay, last section, preparing for success. Because let's be honest, to get insights this powerful, you can't just wing it. As they say, garbage in, garbage out. The work you do up front is what makes the results trustworthy. So here are the keys. First, you have to know exactly what business question you're trying to answer. Your choices need to be realistic, so that means including competitor features, not just your own. And everything has to be super clear and believable. And maybe most important of all, you have to test this with the right people. You need folks who are actually in the market to buy this kind of product. And that's really the core of it all. Conjoint analysis lets you move past what people say they want. It gets you to the truth by forcing them to make the same kind of trade-offs they make every single day. It reveals the hidden math behind their decisions. So the real question that leaves you with is this: what hidden trade-offs in your own market could unlock your product's true potential?